Hello everyone, this is Vinay here from Learn Coding with Vinay again. In last videos, we introduced various career paths in IT industry. And in this video, we'll dive into few of the most in-demand and exciting roles. Those are full stack developer and front-end developers. Right. Now, what is a full stack developer? A full stack developer is someone who works on both the front end and back end of the web application. Right. So they handle everything that a user sees and everything that runs behind the scene. And so companies love full stack developer because they are versatile and can work across multiple layers of an application, front end, back end, middle layer, everything. So whether it is a small startup or a big enterprise, having someone who understands both client side and server side coding is a big asset. Right. So let's dive further into this. I'll move to next slide. Yeah, full stack developer, right? So what do a full stack developer do on a day to day basis, right? What does a person do on his or her day to day life if that guy is working as a full stack developer? So obviously that guy will be working on a web form, developing web forms, working on responsive web design, writing complex business logic, committing code to core repositories, right? Now what is mean by writing complex business logic over here, right? So let's take an example of a insurance. Sorry, let's take an example of insurance agent, right? So have you ever visited an insurance agent that tries to sell the life or health insurance, right? So what happens, they usually will ask us certain questions like what is your age, what is your salary, or what is your monthly, if you are doing a business, then what is your monthly income by business, how many members are there in your family, what are your family financial needs, right? All those, and there may be more questions, right? Now based on all these input, the agent will analyze the situation. He will, perhaps if he has come with some laptop or some pad, then he will key in all these detail in some or the other software, and that software will comes up with a best fit plans and EMI options for us, right? So in terms of in software terms, this entire process is driven by a complex business logic, right? So taking inputs, ba- based on the inputs, do some complex logic, or maybe perform some operation, and then final result will be best suited plan, maybe it is life insurance plan or health insurance plan, and best EMI option for that particular customer, right? So writing business logic, this is called writing complex business logic, and most of the time we don't see it because it lies in the middle layer kind of thing, right? So it's not front end or back end, it lies in the middle, right? In the front end we will see just the output, right? But a full stack developer will be responsible for all this, right? And next will be database management. So from the database management side, the full stack developer will also be responsible for developing database object like tables, functions, store procedure, writing queries, optimizing queries, right? Then debug and troubleshoot issues. So obviously if we are developing a software, whether it is tested by our testers or by users, if there are some bug or issues reported, then we need to fix it, right? The full stack developer will have to fix it. Design and develop web APIs, right? Now depending on the project or data need, actually a full stack developer will require to develop APIs also if the data of your application is being used by other application also, and they are developed in some other technologies, right? So basically systems, those are built differently. If they need to share data, they need to interact with each other, then we need to write APIs. So there are chances that full stack developer will also be developing web APIs, right? Then unit testing and integration test, right? The next would be collaborate with all team members, work closely with designer, project manager, and other team members to develop new features, or new modules in the application. Then deploy applications, and so once the web application is done, we need to deploy that application to various servers like from dev to stage to pre-prod, and then prod, right? So if there is a CI/CD pipeline, which is continuous integration, continuous development pipeline integrated in your project, then a full stack developer may not need to deploy that application because that will happen automatically, right? But if CI/CD pipelines are not implemented and it is still handled manually, then there are good chances that a full stack developer should also know how to deploy an application on a server, right? The next is optimize the performance. That is quite obvious, right? See, over a time of period, our application will be bombarded with lot of data, right? And over a time of period, it might start getting slow. Then the full stack developer will also be responsible for the performance, improvement of the performance of that application. And the next is stay updated with the technology trends. Obviously, we will have to learn in IT industry. We will have to keep learning, right? So we'll have to keep learning of our interest area. Sometime if not just our interest area, we'll have to learn things that are demanded in our project, right? If our project requires something new technology, we will have to learn it, right? And one more important thing nowadays is, use AI to enhance your project task, enhance your project deliverables, or be it anything, coding or writing test cases or anything. Use AI. I have been using chat gpt and Google Gemini very extensively for my purposes, right? So these are the day-to-day tasks of a full stack developer, right? Let's understand better with a pictorial presentation. Right now, this is the same thing what we discussed in the previous slide, right? But a pictorial presentation will be, better. It is always better to remember, right, rather than a whole lot of text, right? So same thing over here. You can pause this video for a while and check out all these images. Now let me move to the next one. Now a full stack developer, uh, let's understand what exactly a full stack developer with another example. I found this image very interesting and quite truth telling about full stack development, right? Whenever we go to any restaurant, right, so there will be a nice hall, there will be nice entrance, there will be tables and chair arranged for customers to come and sit and enjoy their dine, right? At the same time, there will be persons who will be taking order from us. Then that order will be placed in the back end kitchen. In the kitchen we have chefs. They will be preparing our orders, basically preparing foods, and they will give it back to the waiter again, and waiter will come back and serve over here, right? Now all these front end, back end, and API, basically the uh, the waiter takes the order, it gives the order to the chefs prepare the orders, gives it to the waiter, and again waiter come back to customers and deliver it on their table. Now for these three pictures, 1 2 and 3, right, front end, back end, and API, we have a dedicated person doing one or the other stuff, right? So we'll use this image again when we discuss the backend development and mobile development also, because this is a very nice image, right? But imagine someone who is running a cart food business, right? The fourth image over here, right? Now the cart image with with the cart food, there will be one or two person who will be doing everything. They will be taking orders, they will be preparing food, they will be serving the customers. Sometimes they comes with small chairs also, so they will lay down chairs around their vehicles so that customers can sit and enjoy the food, right? So that's what a full stack development is, basically all in one. A person who is working as a full stack will have a lot of responsibilities, so a lot of tasks will has to be done by that particular guy, and that is the reason the full stack development is very popular nowadays, right? One more example, you can consider full stack development as a, this Swiss knife. If you can see this Swiss knife at the top left corner, so there are many small tools, you know it is a Swiss knife is a tool where there are very small tools which can be used for different purpose. A full stack developer can be consider like this only. And that will be a guy, basically who can do many stuff, right? So let me move ahead in this discussion. So if you decide to become a full stack developer, then there are actually options which tools and technology you wanna pick, right? For example, you can become a full stack developer in Microsoft.NET, Java, Mean, Python, PHP, Flutter, and Dart. Right. So let's understand this each one of them, which skill you need to acquire, and which tools you will be using on your day-to-day basis. So let's consider ASP.NET full stack developer. So I have been a .NET, I have been a .NET person for a long, right? So I'll be able to justify this very well. Because as a ASP.NET, if you want to become ASP.NET full stack developer, then the primary thing you should be learning are the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are common for all web development. You must know this, right? Then there is a specific path in terms of ASP.NET. One will have to learn C Sharp, ASP.NET Core. Nowadays, I'll not suggest you to learn now ASP.NET previous framework, which has below 4.8. Now you can start straight away with ASP.NET Core. Then SQL, you should also know how to write web APIs. And for front end, you can either learn one of these, MVC, Angular, and React. But to begin with, start with MVC. Then based on your interest or project demands, you can move to Angular and React. One of either Angular or either React. Right? You don't need to learn everything. MVC, Angular, and React. No, as a beginner, just target one. Right. Now, if you are working on these technologies, then probably you will be using these tools: Visual Studio, VS Code. Visual Studio, we use it for ASP.NET development. VS Code also we can use for ASP.NET development. Right. VS Code, Sublime, or Atom. This we can use to develop APIs and also Angular and React code. Right. SSMS, which is SQL Server Management Studio, which is listed over here. Right, which will be used to create database objects. So basically, if we are working if we are working on database, we need a client tool. So popularly with ASP.NET, the popular database is MS SQL, and that's why I have written SSMS. But ideally, it can be any backend RDBMS, be it MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, or even sometime NoSQL databases like MongoDB as well. Right. So, but I have used SQL Server Management Studio because it is commonly used in a .NET profile, right? So at least you should know MS SQL. You don't know MySQL, Oracle, that's okay, right? But if you are going with ASP.NET full stack profile, you should know MS SQL. That's what the bottom line is, right? And the next one is Git and GitHub, right? So one of the day-to-day tasks we discussed that is to commit the code into version repository, right? So Git and GitHub is the your version repositories, right? So if you don't know what is a version repository, then we will have to commit our code to such repositories. There are others also like TFS, VSS, SVN, Bitbucket, but nowadays popularly used is the GitHub. So I would suggest to start with GitHub. If you don't know anything, then start with GitHub, right? So GitHub can actually contains your code history. If you are developing a web page, let's say login.aspx in terms of ASP.NET, or login.cs, then whatever amount of code is written in login.cs, that will be maintained as a history, right? So if you want to find out the code login page code before 3 months or even 6 months back, then you can use the code repository and find it out, right? So again, these are the symbols that one should remember, because these are the tools and technologies you will be dealing with on a day-to-day basis if you want to become an ASP.NET full stack developer, right? I'll move to next. Now the second option is Java full stack developer. Now if you want to become a Java full stack developer, then again HTML, CSS, and JavaScript will remain the primary for any web development. As soon as you want to become a Java full stack developer, the next thing you should learn is to Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate, write APIs in Java, SQL and PLSQL. Here I have written SQL and PLSQL because as per my experience, Java usually uses Oracle. Projects written in Java usually use Oracle as a background, right? So that's why I have written PLSQL. But you can basically you should know basic TSQL stuffs, right? How to write queries, how to create tables, how to insert, update, delete data, right? All those stuff. Then again, for front end, you can choose Angular, React. Now there are other JavaScript framework also, which are Vue.js, Next.js, but I have kept only Angular and React as of now because they are being a popular one, right? So I am not telling that Vue.js and Express.js or the other are not popular, but again, one JavaScript framework you will have to choose. So if you are going with Java, I would suggest with Angular or React, one of these. But it can be any based on project requirement and based on the your organization you are working with. Right. And if you are working, if you wanna go ahead with this skill set, then these are the tools that you should remember, because you will be dealing it with on a day-to-day basis. That is IntelliJ idea. Here you will develop the Java code. Again, Eclipse, again you can develop Java code in Eclipse also. VS Code to write APIs, MySQL to interact with database. Again, this can be MySQL, SSMS also. This can be Oracle also. Anything, MySQL Workbench, right? And again, and Git and GitHub will be common for every other profiles. Right. So let's move to the next one. Now, MERN full stack developer. Now, what is the MERN? MERN is actually MongoDB, Express.js, Angular, and Node.js. Right. So if you want to become a MERN full stack developer, then you will have to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and MongoDB, Express.js, Angular, and Node.js. Right. And tools you will be using on a day-to-day basis can be VS Code, Sublime Text, MongoDB Compass to deal with MongoDB, and Git and GitHub. Right. Let me move to next. Next one is MERN full stack developer. Now MERN is, it is just similar to mean, but instead of Angular, here we will have React. So basically MongoDB, Express.js, React, and Node.js. And again, the tools and technology will remain the same, because Angular code you can write in any VS Code, Sublime Text, any, and at the same time React code also you can write in any. So that depends on the preference of the organization, because again, and again, the preference of the organization may depending on its licensing also, right? So whatever tools, whatever IDK or whatever SDK, whatever IDE is using, you'll have to get familiar with it. But primarily you should get, as a beginner, you should get familiar with at least VS Code and Sublime Text. Right. Let me move to next one. Now you can also become a Python full stack developer, right? Because a lot of websites are now been using Python also. Right. So for, if you are choosing this profile, then you will have to learn again HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, Django, Flask, Web APIs, SQL, Angular, and React. Again, so see, Angular and React are actually your front end technologies, JavaScript framework. That's why I have listed it everywhere. Because it can be any front end. Sometimes they may use Angular, they may not use Angular. Sometimes it can be just plain HTML. Right. So that depends. Now, if you are using this tech stack, sorry, Python. If you are using this tech stack, then probably you will be dealing with these tools on day-to-day basis, like PyCharm to develop your Python code, Visual Code maybe for API, Angular, and React, SQL Workbench for database interaction, and GitHub. Right. And these are the symbol of Flask or Django, you should remember. And next is PHP full stack developer, right? So if you want to become a PHP full stack developer, then the things you should concentrate are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then PHP, Laravel, WordPress, writing APIs in PHP, right? And MySQL. PHP generally is more, PHP projects generally uses MySQL as backend. And if you are using these skills, then you will have to get familiar with these tools: PHP Storm, VS Code, MySQL Workbench, either XAMPP, Laravel Valet, and GitHub and Git and GitHub. Right. So you can develop PHP code in either PHP Storm, XAMPP, any one of these tools is fine. So let's move to the next one. Flutter and Dart. Now Flutter and Dart, again, if you want to become a Flutter and Dart web developer, we can develop Flutter and Dart mobile application also, and that will cover later. Right. But if you want to become Flutter and Dart web developer, then again HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Flutter, Dart, writing APIs, Firebase, and SQL. Right. And again, you may develop your code using tools like Android Studio, VS Code, Flutter SDK, Firebase console, right? Git and GitHub. Git and GitHub will be common for everyone. Right. Now let me move to the next. I hope you have a good idea about the full stack developer now. Right. Now I have covered front end in a very nutshell. Right. Now front end developers are very specific. They are only concentrated to develop UIs. So basically web forms. If we talk about website, their core task involve developing web forms and making them responsive. Right. So they might be working on HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, or any front-end JavaScript framework like React, Angular, Vue.js, Next.js, right? And for CSS, for appearance, they might use plain CSS, or sometime Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS. Those are CSS framework also, right? So front end we'll cover a little quickly. It is just a part of your full stack development only, but just a one piece. They are only developing web forms, right? And making them responsible, making UI, based on, also uh, developing UI based on the user experience also, right? So this guy will be least bother about how the APIs are written, how the database work. They'll not concentrate on that. The primary focus of there will be to develop a better UI. Right? Now, that's it about full stack and front end development. In the next video, we will look into mobile application development and back end developer profile. So thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for further videos. Thanks a lot, guys.